All right, welcome back to the show this week. Today's guest is Rob Kimbel. He is the CEO of Kimbel Mechanical Systems, a powerhouse in the construction industry headquartered in Fayetteville, Arkansas. Starting in 1993 with just three local plumbers, Rob stepped into the CEO role at age 26 and has led the company to remarkable national growth, now with over 750 employees. Beyond business, Rob is a serial entrepreneur, an investor in affordable housing across the U.S., and a mentor to countless local businesses in Northwest Arkansas. His leadership philosophy centers on servant leadership, grit, and creating opportunities to improve lives. Rob's story is one of hard work, humility, and a relentless hunger for growth, both in business and in people. Rob, man, I'm sure grateful that you've made the time and taken the time to come on and share with our audience today.
Man, I'm glad to be here. Love doing this stuff. Love talking about leadership and how we can make a difference in the world.
Yes, sir. Well, and I'll say this for everybody that listens. Me and Rob had a phone call beforehand, and Rob just wanted to make sure I understood. Rob ain't doing this to promote Rob. Rob is doing this to add value to other people's lives, like plain and simple. Like it's just the reason why I do this podcast. Like I want to add value to somebody's life, and I listen to, and those of you that know the podcast know that I listen to The Learning Leader. It's one of my favorite podcasts. And Rob had an interview with Ryan Hawk on that was absolutely phenomenal. So that's one you can go pull up and listen to. But as soon as that happened, I started texting. I don't know if it was Brooke, Jaron, somebody. I'm like, man, give me that guy's phone number. Let me, because it was fantastic. Like it was really good. So where I want to start is this, and I thought this was really cool. When your dad decided that he was going to retire, he asked you a couple times, to take over and run it, and you really didn't have any interest in doing so for whatever reason. But after several times of asking you, you finally decided to do it. What was behind the thought of not wanting to do it? And then what changed your mind where you decided that, yeah, I think I am going to do this?
So the thought behind not wanting to do it, keep in mind it was just three employees at the time. We were small and it was a tough business. It was 14, 16 hours a day, hot, miserable, and I didn't see any line of sight of getting out of the ditch. I didn't see any line of sight of just killing myself for the rest of my life in that role. I'd seen my dad do it for years. My dad was getting older and that's how he lived. And it was a tough work life balance. And so I had been to a couple years of school of college, but couldn't figure out what I wanted to be and took some time off. And my dad, at the time when he asked me the first time and the second time, I just said no. I didn't even just, it was just no, because in my mind, it was a temporary thing. And the third time when he asked me, he said something that was very unusual for him. And he said, well, I think you should pray about it. And
Mm.
so, like, all right, and so I did, prayed about it and prayed about it. And I can remember just thinking about one late afternoon, I was headed home, another miserable day at work. And I was thinking about my dad, what he'd said, and I was just kind of praying along the road. And I can tell you the corner that I wasn't the audible voice of God, but it was the corner I knew when I was supposed to do. I was going around a corner in front of Buford Baker's house in West Fork, Arkansas. And I just felt like this overwhelming, like, you're supposed to do this.
Wow.
Like, oh gosh, and so went home and told my wife. We had two small kids at the time, and told her what I was thinking. And you'd have to meet Sherry, but she's the glue behind everything we do. But she was like, if you think we should do it, then let's do it. And we did. Like that was the decision was from, 5 minutes after I felt so compelled to do it that I told her, and we were rolling. Told my dad the next day I'd do it, and here we go.
That's fantastic. I have most of my life because I grew up, my dad was a preacher growing up, so I've been, a person of faith my whole life. And, I went to a private Christian school to play college football, and this and that. So in my life, when big things come about, one of my first thoughts is to pray about it, right? And I've kind of been led the right direction because I just believe that if I pray about it hard enough and long enough, that it just comes to me. Like I'm not gonna say he don't talk to me like that, but I just we get to a decision like that I feel like is where he wants us to be, you know. So up until that point, was that something you'd ever do, you know, in making big decisions, or is it something now that you continue to do when you have big decisions come up in life?
I would say for me, prayers today is a continual thing. It's an everyday, it's a first thing in the morning, read my Bible and praying. But at that point in my life, I would say it was probably more intermittent, and so it wasn't normal. It would have only been in the big events back then. It would have only been in, am I in trouble or do I have a decision? You know,
Right, right.
and so, but today it's just it's an everyday occurrence.
For sure. And I very much the same. Like, you know, in when I was younger, it would be like you said, you know, something bad's done happen. Now I'm praying for help, you know,
Yeah.
whereas now I pray for gratitude. I'm grateful a lot. You know what I mean? Like I don't wait for the bad to hit. Well, take me through, you know, through high school. What did you learn from your parents? You know, they say we catch more than we actually learn. What did you catch from your parents? And what led you into that business in the first place? You know, was your intentions college? Was your intentions not college? Like, what was your dreams when you were in high school as far as what path you would go, you know, heading into the post years of high school?
Yeah, so probably the number one lesson I learned through school or through when from my parents would have been just my dad's work ethic.
Mm,
Um, I always tell people I was a backseat baby, meaning I was made in the back seat when my dad was 16 and my mom was 17.
right, right.
So, so they started off very poor, didn't have any real support, financial support from their parents. And so I grew up really, really poor. But I saw my dad just work his guts out. Like still today, the hardest working person I know. Even though he's retired, he works on his farm and all the time doing something. And I just picked that work ethic up from him and my brother as well. My brother caught the same work ethic, and um, I saw him pull us out of poverty, literal poverty, to what I would call a lower middle class or middle class by the time I was graduating high school. At the time, I didn't appreciate it, and at the
Right.
time, it um, didn't really even think about it. But as I got older, I realized like, and I've told him that. I mean, I've thanked him for that. Like I've told him, you are a chain breaker. You are somebody that because he came from a long line of poverty before that, and so
Sure.
just cool to see that. That's what I learned from him. Is just to it's cool to see your dad do that for you and your family. Um, in high school, I didn't know what I wanted to be. I mean, I was all over the map. I mean, what I wanted to be was a professional basketball player, but I'm 6'5" and, can't jump. And I have a big ass. I have a big
Sure,
ass. So like
sure,
that wasn't going to work out. But when I went to college, I went undeclared, was paying for college myself, living on my own. And so after a couple of years, I didn't know what I wanted to do and I was burning money. So I took what was going to be a semester off to kind of think about what I wanted to do. And that turned into another semester and a year and I never went back. Um, so didn't have aspirations on, I always knew that I probably wanted to be in some sort of business by myself, but I didn't know what that looked like. Like I was just a kid. Um, and when I went to work for my dad, I definitely knew I didn't want to do that. That was just grunt work that I was going to do
sure.
for a season. Um, but over time, as I worked with him and I saw some of the things he did, he was really good at some efficiencies in the field, but not so good at some of the efficiencies in the business side of it.
Sure.
And I would ask questions mentally. I'd be like, I wonder why we do it that way, or I wonder why. And over time, I kind of figured out some things that we could make the business better. And so I got to where I fell in love with the business side of it just as much as I did the work side of it, or more than the work side of it. So yeah, that's kind of the trajectory of how we got going.
I love that, you know, and I guess I got two questions, you know, from that. Number one, what would you advise a young kid that's graduating high school and they really don't know? You know, like let's say it's one of your personal kids, you know, and they really don't know. They don't, you know, like they're not dead set on going being a teacher or coach, or they just don't know. You know, like what would be your advice to your personal kid if they're 18 years old, graduating high school, and they just don't know what they want to do.
So I can use my personal kids because three of the four ended up in the business. My oldest went to play baseball in Arizona and then came back after a year, and didn't know what he wanted to do and got into the trades and started out in the field. And I just told him, I was like, hey, try it. If you like it, great. If not, I mean, no big deal. Just think about what you want to do. And then my twins, the younger two, also took a similar path out of high school. They both had the opportunities to go play baseball at college, but they both decided that just wasn't what they wanted to do. But they wanted to go to work in the field and see what that was like. And for an 18-year-old guy going and taking a year or two and getting into the trades and just seeing what it's like and seeing the opportunities, a lot of times what society has told our young men and women, because we have a lot of women in the trades now too, but what they've told them is if you don't go to college, you're dumb. If you don't go to college, you're a
That's right.
loser. And they don't actually see the career path a lot of these guys have. And so there's a guy named that works for us. His name's Jack. Like Jack at 21 years old made over $100,000 last year.
Right.
Um, Now he worked his butt. He was a football player, worked his butt off, understood team, and has just been had the opportunity to grow and grow. And now he's overseeing work for us at 22 years old now. And I mean, so there's so many opportunities. I would just tell these guys, look, go try it. And what you're doing the first day is not what you'll be doing in 5 years. Like what I gave a talk to some educators yesterday or the day before, and what I relayed to them, and that they were somewhat surprised, is most of the time in the trades, especially new construction, after about the fifth or sixth year, most of our tradesmen are not, they're leading in some capacity. They,
Right.
whether that's a small crew or a bigger crew, but we're asking them to lead, and that's more important than the skill of actually being able to install the work. Now they still do some installation and all that, but the leading and the soft skills are of greater importance to us.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great answer, and I think, I'm starting year 32 in education, and there have been times when I feel 100% of what you're saying. Like if you're not college bound, you're dumb or you're less than or and the truth of the matter is like, there's a large percentage of kids that graduate high school and don't go to college, right? And to feel like you have to go to college to be successful is ridiculous because there's so many people in this world like yourself, and there's so many other examples that get into a field that they don't have to go to college. We had a young lady, I say young lady, she's about 20 years into an IT business, but she took a job ground floor level at a big technology firm here in Springfield, Missouri 20 years ago as a 17-year-old mom, and worked her way up through 20 promotions and is now, on a CIO path with no college education, but making more money than a lot of college educated people, probably including myself, will ever make. So to think you have to go to college is not, what you will do is you can guarantee yourself some debt, right? Like,
Yeah.
you can come out and owe 40, 50, $100,000 in a heartbeat now. So I love the advice, maybe you go figure it out for a year or two because you can still go to school. Like
Yep.
if it's a field that you have to go, then that's great. But to feel like you have to do that or you're not successful, is a foolish thought. How do like if you take a young person in, and you hire a person right out of high school, 18 years old, what would be the perfect kid for you to hire? What would that kid be like? What kind of skills would he already possess or behavior traits? Like what would you like to see him come to you with?
Yeah. So from the standpoint of hard skills, they don't need to have any. We can teach all of that. What's awesome is when we get kids, our core values are team, humble, hunger, integrity, and grit. And if you've got kids that have three or four of those, and we can teach them what the others are naturally, we found that. So a lot of like if you start to kind of put them into demographics, like we found that kids who play sports on a
Mm,
team tend to have a lot of those characteristics. kids that grew up on a farm and have gone out, and they tend to have a lot of those characteristics, especially baseball, football, outdoor. You and I were talking before we started recording. I mean, the 4, 5, 6 hour days, the two practices a day, those
Sure.
kids, they get it. They get it quick. So I mentioned this on the podcast that you'd mentioned about Ryan, but like what we don't want is arrogant, lazy, wimpy assholes. Like just don't come. If you come that way, you're probably not going to make it.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, the ideal team players just have those five core values and grind it out.
I love that. I love those core values, and I love that you have them, and we'll dive into that a little bit more. But what I heard you say was if their hobby is playing video games and they're really good at it, they're probably not going to make it.
Well, I don't ever want to, probably not, but you never know. People change. So,
Well,
but yeah,
okay. No, I know what you're saying, and I was being facetious because there are, and we tell our kids all the time, like, video games is okay as a a time to do it every once in a while, but when other things in your life, when it starts taking precedent over other things in your life, then it might be a problem. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Because I don't, man, I don't even know when you find time to play video games when you're bowed up working your butt off. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Or if you're a good husband or you're a good father or you're a good friend, like you're not constantly
yep,
on a video game, right?
yep.
You said something, like you'll bring young people in or whomever, and they'll go to work, say, as a plumber or whatever. 4, 5, 6 years in, they, can be leading a team or something like that. What do you do intentionally? And I've heard Ryan Hawk talk about this, even with himself, like he went in to Nexus or whatever it was. He's a salesman and he can sell, sell, sell. But then he becomes like a manager of a team of salesmen and he didn't know how to be a manager, right? So, like, what do you do to help teach leadership to people that may come in a role, but then progress through to leadership skills, leadership roles? Do you do anything specifically to try to help those people learn the skills necessary?
We do. I mean, the first thing we can do is model it. We can model what being a good leader is, caring about your people and stuff. And then on top of that, I think living out, it goes hand in hand with that, but living out our purpose of creating opportunities to improve lives. If you've been on the job 5 days and a new guy starts, you can create an opportunity to help improve a life. That it starts early and just modeling it and trying to. And we talk about our core values pretty much before every meeting when they start. And I think if you live our core values, that helps teach
Yeah.
leadership. But that being said, we also recognize that a 21-year-old leading a 40-year-old sometimes is kind of tough. And so we have, or interacting with a customer that's, construction's kind of tough sometimes. And so interacting with a customer that's hot about something can be tough. And so we have foreman training, we have superintendent training, we have all kinds of soft skill training that we do. Um, we have trainings that are oh crud, what are those called? Um, Difficult conversation like training and stuff.
Sure.
Like we're constantly trying to empower our people to be able to filter and work through tough conversations, how to lead people, how to motivate people in a way that's probably not normal in our industry. I mean, most people in our industry want to scream and holler, and that's what
Sure.
they know, you know.
Sure.
But we're constantly we have intentional meetings, intentional one-on-one time. We have a team of people that their number one, I call them the glue, but their number one job is just go out and develop relationships with our team and be a male role model, a male mentor for them, especially like in our field, that they can lean on and
Mhm.
learn from and stuff. So,
I love
yeah,
that. Well, and I would assume, like you've taken a company and, from three to 750 plus or however many employees you have now, how did you prepare yourself for that? As the leader, as the leader of the company, because you didn't go to college to learn how to, you know, grow the business side of it. You didn't really go to business school per se. How did you learn yourself? How did you figure it out, early on? And what kind of things have you done to make sure you can continue to grow and provide what needs to be provided to your people?
I would love to tell you that it just came natural, and at 21 years old or 26 years old, I just had it all figured out. It was a lot of trial and error, or a lot of error and a lot more error. And I screwed up a lot in my leadership journey. Like, I did not know what I didn't know. I love my dad, but he could only manage two or three people at a time. And so, I didn't really understand what it was like to scale leadership. And so I learned a lot of lessons the hard way. I got to a point probably in my early to mid 30s where I really started reading a ton of books on leadership, reading a ton of books. Just, that was back before podcasts were a thing.
Sure,
Uh, and then when podcasts came out, I really dove into those. Went to a few different leadership conferences and had a couple mentors that, I sought out, like people that were ahead of me that I sought out. And just through, all of that immersion of just learning by screwing up, learning by reading books, and learning by listening to podcasts. That's kind of where I'm at today. There's a lot of people that they're my mentors and they don't even know it just because, they have podcasts or whatever. And Craig
sure.
Rochelle, one that he's a great influence on my life, and he doesn't even know it, And so just I think you have to have that desire to continue to improve and figure things out.
I love that. And you probably don't know, but there's a guy in Springfield. His name is Jack Stack.
Yeah.
He actually, had Jack? You've heard of Jack Stack?
Yeah, I don't know Jack, but I've heard of Jack Stack. Yeah.
Well, I've had him on the podcast, and I just, he bought that company when it was little, like you, and his answer was very similar. Like he didn't know what he was doing. He didn't have a clue. Like he's screwing it up, but as he's screwing it up, he's trying to figure it out. You know what I mean? So it wasn't screw it up and not learn. It was screw it up, figure it out, screw it up, figure it out. And now it's an absolutely huge company that's thriving and has all types of other companies that have come out from underneath it, but it was the same way. Like, he just had a desire to figure it out, and just like you, he just, like read, learned, associated with people that knew what they were doing and he did figure it out. So, I think that is absolutely fantastic. How do you teach your core values? Like, you know, we will here, like in the summertime, June 2nd's day one for us. So we put a core value to a day of the week just so our kids can kind of remember them. Monday's family, Tuesday's hard work, Wednesday's commitment, whatever. And then we'll have a coach teach a lesson on, what it is. How do you, get the core values across to your employees?
So there's a few ways we do it. One, I mean, I think they probably get tired of hearing about them sometimes, to be honest with you, but it's just a constant.
Sure.
You're talking about it. But also, we have some behaviors with our core values.
Hmm.
So humble is our mantra behind humble is take the back seat. And that actually comes, my dad, whenever he would get in a vehicle, didn't matter who was getting in, he was getting in the back seat. He took he put others before himself. And so take the back seat is one. And it's kind of funny in our organization. Um, Literally people get into wrestling matches trying to get in the back seat. Like they're fighting each other to get in the back seat. So that one's stuck. So that's pretty cool. So we talk about it, but we also tell stories. We tell stories of how, being humble or how having integrity or grit worked out to our benefit. And then we award people for it. So when we see it, we do something about it.
Hmm.
So whether that's a thank you note, whether that is we have what we call MVP award. I think it's once a month. We have so many different things I forget, but I think it's
Sure.
once a month where people can nominate a person that they've seen go above and beyond living out our core values, and it comes to us as an executive team and we vote on two or three a month and give out an MVP award. And I think it's a small monetary, but it's mostly the notoriety you get put up on the screen and all the
Sure.
shops across the country. And so but we talk about it, we tell stories about it, we talk about our behaviors with it, and that's how we teach it.
I love that you have behaviors that go with your core values. That's awesome. And, praising the behavior you want rewarded is a surefire way to get more of that behavior because what human don't like to be praised, right? Like
Yeah.
everybody
Well,
likes a pat on the back.
and the opposite is true as well. If we see somebody that is not living our behavior, or not living a core value, we call it out with them.
Mm,
Um, we recently acquired, I can't go into too many details, but because
sure,
for HR reasons,
sure,
but we recently acquired a company, and on day two, one of the people at that company got put on a performance plan because they didn't live our values. And at day 21, he's terminated because he
sure,
wasn't living out our values. And so,
sure.
like, you have to hold people accountable for that as well.
How does because I think that's hard. I think that's where a lot of businesses, I think that's a lot of teams. I think that's where a lot of people miss the boat, okay? Because like we all want accountability. And I'm even talking about you and I. Like we know we need to be held accountable, but accountability's hard. Like when it really gets down to it, we don't really want it. We know we need it. So,
Yeah.
but how do you, with your employees, how does that go? When you do, when you have someone that is not doing something that is the way y'all do it, how is it handled?
So I would say this is if I could tell you like one of our biggest struggles, it's we care so deeply for each other that we do struggle sometimes to hold each other
Sure,
accountable,
sure,
especially when you get out further. Um, and so we're not perfect at it. I don't want the audience thinking I have this figured out, because
sure,
if somebody has a good idea, come tell me.
sure,
But I mean, sometimes it's peer pressure. So sometimes it's a peer saying, "Hey, dude, we don't do it like that.
right.
Like, that's not high integrity. We're not gonna do a poor quality job just because, or hey, I didn't like your attitude. You need to." And that's a peer-to-peer thing. Um, Sometimes it's a little more serious, and there are consequences, whether that's a written warning, whether that's sometimes it's a termination. We have
Sure,
some non-negotiable things that, um for example, if you're caught stealing, like, that's a non-negotiable. It's an integrity issue, and
sure.
gone.
Yes.
And so setting the precedents and stuff, again, we don't do perfect in that, but that's kind of where we want to be.
Yeah, and I would assume as long as y'all have been in business and the way that you're running business, it's like in our program, if a person's not a fit, they normally find the way out themselves. Like if they just don't feel like they belong, then they go find something else themselves because as uncomfortable as it is for us to hold them accountable, it's just as uncomfortable for them because they're the oddball. Like they're not
Yeah.
like our program's not like that. So, like they're an outcast if they are not, within our rules. And, our lesson today, like core value for Monday's family. So we've kind of been hitting on this family thing. And, one of the coaches taught a lesson on accountability and family and love. Well, if you care about somebody, you will hold them accountable. If you don't care, you may let them slide, right? Or likewise, if I know you care about me and you come to hold me accountable, I'm okay with that because you care about me. But
Yep.
if you don't love me, if you don't care about me, then it's hard for you to hold me accountable. It all kind of, and I tell
Yep.
my coaches, like my O-line coach, you can't go get on a D lineman. Like you can't go coach him real hard because you don't have a relationship with him. Like, that's not your role. Like now, if he goes and gets on an offensive lineman really hard, no issue because that offensive lineman knows he loves him. They're gonna work it out. They're gonna figure it out. But I think accountability is a tough one. But if you truly care and you run your program that way, them jokers will weasel their way out of the program because they
Yeah.
won't like, they really won't like what's going on. Talk to me a little bit more about the thank you notes, about, I think that's a highly overrated, not overrated. It's a skill that is underrated because it's a lot more worthy than I think people do it. I think people have gotten out of actually, putting the pencil to pen and writing a thank you note, but I think it's so worthy and so useful. How do y'all do that?
Yeah. So it started off with, I heard a podcast. Again, I wish I had more original ideas. I'm not that
Sure.
smart. But I heard a podcast about somebody that he wrote, I think, one a week or something like that to people that he was in business with or whatever. And then it also, at the same time, I heard Ryan Hawk interviewed Brooke Cups and Brooke specifically talked about like during their practices and games how they touch, like high five, knuckles, pull somebody up off the ground, slap them in the butt, and like there's this metric that the amount of touches equates to,
No
culture and
doubt.
premium play and all that. And so kind of came up with this idea that we need to have more touch points with our people. And the easiest one um, that came out of it, the one that we like use a lot, we do a lot of other things, but the one that came out a lot is just thank you notes. And what it started off was is just our executive team. Each week we would each there's 9 of us on the team. Each week we would come with either one or two thank you notes, and of somebody 2, 3, 4 layers out from us, 5 layers out. I mean, clear out at the maybe a first year apprentice even of somebody living out our core values in some way that we heard about, saw, or whatever. And so, and we share that with all of us. So, like, I hear, about a 20-year-old kid in Montana that's doing really well. And so, when I hear that he's getting a thank you note, it prompts me to shoot him a text. Hey, heard you were doing really good, and kind of. And so we just started doing that. And over time it took a while, like it's planting seeds, you don't
Sure.
get any fruit from it, but we just kept at it, kept chopping the wood. And finally we started hearing some feedback. A parent would text somebody, or we would get an email thanking us for the thank you note, and stuff like that. And so now we've pushed it out to some other teams. Some of the rest of our team is doing thank you notes as well. I really like it because as the CEO, like I'm really removed from the work in the field. My
Sure.
my job, my daily job is not in the field every day, and really hardly ever anymore. And so I like it because I get to hear of our up and comers. Typically somebody that's getting a thank you note is probably an up and comer, and
Right.
then all of a sudden you've got their eye on what they're doing and who they're going to, where their career trajectory is going. But also, our people, it means so much from our people to get a handwritten note from an executive. And it's so silly. And my wife, Sherry, was just telling me a minute ago, she's like, you really don't understand how much your words matter to your team. Like they want to please you so much. I still think of myself as that 16-year-old kid that was trying to dunk a basketball and couldn't do it. But,
Right.
um, but it really does mean a ton to our people. And so where I've gotten my habit now is I write three a week, me personally, a minimum of three a week. And I have one of them I listen for. Two, I have Sherry get names for me. My wife, she's also my assistant, my executive assistant. Have her get names for me. What it forces me to do is I might get a name where I know the person, but I don't know what they're doing, what job they're on, or anything like that. And so I go to the executive on my team and I'm like, hey, you know, Sean, what's this guy doing? Well, he'll tell me a story or he'll have to go get more information. They'll tell me something that guy's doing great or that lady's doing great. I will write in the note, hey, Sean was telling me that you were doing this. And what that does is number one, I'm bragging on them, but now they know that somebody else in the organization was bragging about them for me to have heard about
Yeah.
it. And it really just, to me, it tells those people that we see them, we care about them, we know what they're doing. They're not just a number in our organization, and that we really do care. We really want what's best for you and appreciate everything you're doing for our organization.
Yeah, and I think anybody that's listening, you can think about right now somebody that wrote you a handwritten thank you note. Like you remember it. Like you remember it 10 times more than you remember an email, 10 times more than you remember, whatever, but you remember a handwritten note. Because I know you know her, I think you know her, Sherry Cole.
Yeah,
I interviewed Sherry Cole maybe, I don't know, 15 months ago on the podcast. We had a great conversation. And I don't know, it's a week or two later, she sends me a thank you note, a handwritten thank you note, thanking her, thanking me for having her on the podcast. And I'm
yeah,
sitting there like people that have this skill of writing thank you notes, I find them to be special. Like everybody that I've ever run across, whether it's you or Sherry or Howard Bihar was one of the original like owners of Starbucks. Okay. And like he said, he would write thousands of happy birthday cards, handwritten birthday cards to every employee at Starbucks. Like, and it would be thousands, a week, and just like, I think it's a special talent that some people have. And it's how easy is it? It's so easy. But
Oh
how
yeah,
easy is
it's
it to not do it?
I don't even think it's a talent. I think it's just a discipline.
It's a
Uh,
discipline.
because it takes a thank you note for me is on a well here I've got one right here I can show you, but it's on a card about that size, and it takes four sentences, which takes about 2 minutes, and I sign my name.
Yeah.
And beyond that, like I don't have to postage it. I don't have to put the address. I just hand it to my assistant and she takes care of the rest.
Right.
So, but it's a big freaking deal. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the highest return on my investment of my time, hands down.
No doubt. And it seems crazy to say that, but I 100% believe that just because I can name the ones that I get, and I keep them. I don't know why, like, but I
Yeah,
keep
I
them.
do
I have them in
too.
a drawer. They're stacked up, like, I don't know, like it feels special to me. Something that you talked about on that podcast that stood out to me, and I told you before we got on today, it was our Monday mini lesson for our football team was if somebody comes to you, and they'll do these three things, they can have success within your organization. And I would argue you could have success in any organization, but the three you said was show up, work hard, and finish. Like how did you come by that? Because I thought it was really good, and I think it's fitting for a football team, right? If you'll just show up every day, work hard, and finish, you're going to be successful. If you can stack a bunch of those days together, right, you're going to mess around and have a chance to win a bunch of ball games, right? So, how did you come up with that? What's your thoughts around it?
Um, Definitely wasn't a mantra of ours in the organization until Ryan interviewed me, and we were just having a conversation. And I've heard from a few different people now that like that really stuck with them.
Sure,
So I think we lived that out before we actually put it into words. We don't have that. That's not written on our walls anywhere, but it's just a truth that we live by. I mean, we tell our people, start times at 6 o'clock, be there at 6. Not rocket science. Just like that is a simple, you
sure,
know, work hard. That doesn't mean, run everywhere you go and kill yourself. It just means like stay steady, work hard, do what you're supposed to do, and then finish. It's the same thing. I mean, don't leave things undone. And I relate that to hindsight's always 2020. So when I was a kid, don't think I had these thoughts. This is, me
sure.
with the view 30 years later. But when I was in high school, played high school basketball. Um, and honestly, I wasn't that good as an athlete. There were kids that were better than me on the team, but the ones that didn't touch the line, the one that didn't run that last set of stairs, the ones I beat them out of positions and I had better statistics than them. I firmly believe it's because I did those things. Now, at the time, I just was like, I thought that's what you did.
Sure,
It didn't dawn on me to cheat in
sure.
practice. It's the same in business. I mean, show up, work hard, finish, and good things happen. Sometimes it takes a little longer than others, but when preparation meets opportunity, good things happen.
Yeah, I think that's one of our superpowers, here is we're going to work hard every day. Like we're not going to take a day off. We're not going to skip a day. We're not going to like we're just going to we're just going to put them back. And there are probably lots of things in our program that other people do better. But we're going to show up every single day and we're going to work really really hard, and that you stack a bunch of those days together and you just get really good. And really doesn't matter if it's playing the guitar, if it's building a company or if it's, coaching a football team. Like just those three things done consistently, will lead you somewhere pretty good.
Yep.
Let's go down this path and we won't go real far, right? Because I don't want to get fired because I am in education. But if you were, like No Child Left Behind, education changed, right? And I've been in schools when we do push a large majority of them toward college. And 50% of them don't go to college. So, you're like, what are you doing? If you have a message for schools, and I know you talk, you go in, you said recently you spoke to some educators, what's your message, to education just in general? What would be a couple of pieces of advice that you would give to one that was listening?
I would say there's the one that kind of comes to mind quick is don't underestimate the trades and what that is. So many times educators think that if they send a kid into the trades that they are going to be installing for the rest of their lives. And the truth is, by year 10, most people in the trades are no longer installing. They're leading people who are
Sure.
installing. And that's called a career. And by the way, those guys that are 10 years in are making 100, 150,000 a year, which is
Yeah.
more than most college graduates at that point in their
Yes.
life. So it's a career. It's not just a job, it's a career.
Sure.
The other thing too is that I think educators miss is it doesn't it's not for just for dumb kids. It's not just for kids that maybe not book smart. It We have a lot of this is what's ironic too with us is we have a lot of kids that had a 4.0 in high school, went to college 2 years, hated it, knew they didn't want to be in office cubicle, come to work with us, and at 24 years old, they're leading in
Yeah.
a significant way.
Yeah.
We've got some people that have been with us for 15, 20 years. They're leading $100 million worth of work,
Right.
no college education whatsoever. So, like, it is truly, there are everybody learns in a different way. I'm one of those kids. I know what my IQ is. It's perfectly fine.
Sure.
But I didn't learn in the traditional way that high school and college taught. And
Right.
so it's okay, to send your smart kids into the trades as well.
For sure. Do you think, because you've been doing this for a while, okay? Do you think that's changing a little bit now because of AI and technology? I mean, I think there are kids coming out. I think there are more kids coming out of school now with the thought of, I don't have to go to college because of, these technology companies that are here that are huge. You don't have to go to college. They'll take
Yeah.
you at 18 years old and they'll teach you everything you need to know. You need to know how to show up, work hard, finish, right? Like if you can do that and the things you said, do you think, have you seen that change, throughout 20 years or, do you think it's getting worse, better? How do you feel about that?
So when I first got into the trades, it was kind of at the beginning of No Child Left Behind, and it got worse for a while.
Sure.
I would say in the last 3 to 5 years, we're really starting to see a turn in the thoughts of society and what this
Yeah.
looks like. Um, the next hurdle is getting parents to believe that,
Yeah.
you know. Had a we had a young guy that wanted to come work with us, applied out of high school. His parents threw a fit, made him go to college. He went and got 4 years college degree, then came back and worked for us. Had to start at the bottom.
Right.
You realize he'd have been making,
Sure.
80,000 a year if he'd have started
Sure.
at 18. So, yeah, society we're getting there as a society. And
Yeah.
by the way, like I am all about continual improvement, all about continual learning. Like I read all the time. I mean, I'm in the middle of a great book right now, and um, but it doesn't have to be the traditional way
Yeah.
that of college that
Sure.
we've been taught.
Yeah, and I will say this because I've had a guest on here because I've asked that question to several people that are in various leadership roles, and I had another great answer come up, and I thought this was worthy was okay, if they don't know what to do, they might go to college for 2, 3, or 4 years, and what that college time can do is give them some time to grow up where they still have some structure. They're not 100% out on their own, right? Because at 18, I really wasn't ready to be on my own, just to be honest. But college can be this little world that kind of shelters them for a little bit, but they do learn how to wake up on their own without mommy and daddy getting them up.
Yeah.
They do learn how to go to class. They do,
Yep.
in a more of an environment where, there is a little structure. They're just not like on their own 100%, right? So, and I thought that was a valid argument. Like it is a space that you can learn how to grow into adulthood if you're not sure. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
Yep.
it's not, I know you're not saying nobody should go to school. Like that's not, and that's
Oh,
not what
absolutely
we're
not.
saying at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. I
Um,
think it's just, I think it's an individual, it should be an individual
yes,
decision based on learning style, based on competencies, based on your working genius and
no
what you like
doubt.
to do. And I mean, there's a whole lot of things that go into it.
No
And
doubt.
I just don't like us being defined as a society that we all have to look the same way.
No doubt. No
So,
doubt. And I think that's changing. I do. I mean, I think because of some of the technology stuff that's coming, like I can see a younger generation that, does feel a little bit differently about, what they have to do to be successful. Whereas, when I grew up and my parents did, I mean, I'm probably the first person in my family to graduate with a 4-year degree and have a master's degree. And that was the path to be successful. Like I didn't know anything else. That's just what, it's
yep.
what I was thrown into. But I do think, that we may be making a little bit of a change in that. I want to ask you, this is going to be an off-topic question, I'm sure, but I do because I have heard you talk about it and have seen some things. You say your marriage is intentional, right? And Sherry is, like she is the glue. She holds everything together. How long have you been married and how challenging, how much have you had to learn through that? Because I think I was talking to somebody about this yesterday. Marriage is not, me and my wife will be married 30 years in July, right? And it's awesome today. But boy, it was tough getting started. And you want to talk about a learning experience, like that's a learning experience. Just talk to me a little bit about your marriage and about your wife.
So we will, I love being put on the spot. Let me do math here. 32 years in August for me.
Okay,
And so Sherry and I met, we were between our junior and senior years in high school. We went to opposing schools. Um, and started dating then. Got married when we were 19 years old. Both of us came from somewhat broken homes, so we were oldest children, so we were kind of forced to grow up a little early. So we were, I mean, as mature as you can be as a 19-year-old.
sure,
Now, um, I do wonder what our parents were thinking, letting us go through with it, but
sure.
we did. Um, and she's my best friend. Like we have a blast. Today is, I would say marriages start at the bottom left and go to top right, but there's a whole lot of this in between. There's up and
Yeah,
down and all that. And mostly because I was a jackass, not her. She's awesome. And sometimes I'm not.
sure,
um, but I would say, for us, the number one thing is just the commitment to come back all the time. Like no matter how much I've pissed her off or how much she's pissed me off, like the commitment that we're going to come back. And there are times that it's been, you might have a rough week with
sure,
each other, but you still get in the same bed, you still tell each other good night.
sure.
May not want to pray with each other that particular day, but you're still trying to work it out. And what that's turned into is, anytime you're on a team and you're working together and you're doing hard things, you become closer. And so we're very intentional about our time. We're very intentional about the amount of time we spend together because it's one thing to say people have quality time, but sometimes it just takes time, period.
Mm,
And, during that time, that garbage time, as Ryan calls it, like a lot can happen. And so a couple of years ago, kind of is an example of that intentionality. I think it was 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, our boys had graduated high school and were old enough. They moved out on their own. And so it was just Sherry and I. And I had committed that year to spend 1,000 hours of one-on-one time with Sherry. I
mm,
don't know if you've ever tried to spend 1,000 hours in one year with your wife, but it's a lot. And you start to break that down though when you think about the intentional time, and it's 20 hours a week and then it's 4 hours a day, and so all of a sudden you're tracking 15 minutes to make sure
sure,
that you're getting your time in. And I would say that doing that exercise created just jumped us up in a whole other level of intentionality of maybe before I would leave for work before her, well, now I might wait or she might get ready early and we'll go together.
Yeah.
And that way we can have that half-hour drive time together there and back. And, just little things like that. Go to the grocery store together. I hate going to the grocery store, but if I get to do it with her, we're
Yeah.
hanging out and people watching and having fun. And, and so it's that intentionality of just being together um, and having fun together is probably what's bound our marriage the most.
I love that.
Obviously God is a big part of it and really the center of it. But outside of that, that's how we've kind of managed it.
I love that. And ours is a little similar in that we decided on day one that the D word just wasn't going to come out of our mouth, right? Like leaving, not an option. Okay. So we'll figure it out no matter what, right? Just figure it out. And then we have been intentional about time. We will get up and walk in the morning time together, and that's 30 minutes and you said the one we listen to every Monday is Craig Rochelle. That's our Monday listen when we take off. It's a 30-minute podcast, right? And our little lap we takes 30 minutes, and then we pray together when we come back. And that has added great value, just in the intentional doing it every day, like has been great. And we've always taken many vacations, just spur of the moment, and continued to date as we go, because there are times when people get through raising their kids and they look at each other and they're like, I don't really like you no more. You know what I mean? Because they threw everything into their kids, which is fine. But, we saw people do that and did not want to do that. So we worked hard to not do that.
Yeah, I think I've seen a lot of those families that have thrown everything into their kids. And if your kids don't know that your spouse is number one and they're number two, then you're setting your kids up for failure in their future marriage.
No doubt.
And so,
No doubt.
my boys always knew that Sherry was number one in my eyes, and they knew that I was her number one. So,
And you've been very kind with your time, and we're gonna wrap it up. But I do want to ask this from a curiosity standpoint. Parenting's hard too. Like, man, I missed the book on parenting. Like, I wasn't a reader 27 years ago when we had our daughter, and man, being a parent's hard. And we've battled this a little bit because I didn't grow up with a whole lot. I mean, my wife when she was young, they didn't have a whole lot. And then, we get into, teaching and coaching and, and not that we're rich, but we have more than, say, our parents had. How have you kept your kids humble in that, like, what you had growing up, but your kids have had more, like, what have you done to, offset that so that they're not, overly privileged or overly entitled? How has that been?
so I would not take my own advice in this probably now, but this is what I did. What Sherry and I did when our boys were 12, we required them to work in the summers, and it started off as like 5 hours a week. Just teaching them work ethic, and it was hard labor jobs. It wasn't the easy jobs, go around sweep up. It was like loading boxes and hot trailers and different things like that. I think that taught them a couple of things. One, it showed them that in our family we work hard and we're going to earn our keep. It also, they knew that these people they were working for in our business worked for me, and they had to report to somebody that reported to me. And it kind of just set the stage of like, I'm not above anyone just because I'm Rob's son.
Mm,
Um, we also, I mean, I think sports is a very humbling experience in itself.
yeah,
They played baseball. Baseball is fail 67% of the time.
no doubt.
And so I think encouraging them to play team sports, think of others first, those kind of things. But and the other thing too is we've just never like we will take them on very nice vacations. We will do things like that, but we don't support them financially. We don't like they're on their own. I mean, and I think that as adults, while sometimes it's hard as a dad that could help them a lot. Um, it's what's best for them when they're 40. They're going to be glad they went through this in their 20s.
Mm,
And so, my oldest son is almost 30 now, and now he's at the point where he's like, I'm so glad, the way you managed this. Now, did we screw up as parents? Oh my gosh, yes, we were like,
sure.
again, I didn't read as much, and there wasn't as much
No,
information back then to
no.
for parenting, and so we screwed up some big time on some things, but I feel like the way to for us, you asked about how we kept them humble. I think it was through work. Like I think just making them work was a humbling experience.
No doubt
It's
about it.
for anybody.
No doubt about it. And I often say this. I mean, it's gonna be hard at some point in time. Like you can make it hard on them when they're 12 and they can figure it out and they can grow through it and they can or you can give them everything under the sun, and then when they get out on their own and they're 27, it's gonna get hard. Like
Right.
it's gonna get hard, and I am guilty of making it too easy. Probably on my daughter because we tried to give her everything that we didn't have necessarily growing up. You know what I mean? So hard came along a little later in life. But that's one of them things that you don't really get a do-over in parenting, you know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
um,
And it's hard. There's this healthy tension of you want to show generosity and you want them to experience the fruits of your labor.
yeah,
At the same time, you got to figure out how to create some sort of difficulty, hardship, or whatever that's safe. You certainly don't want to be living under a bridge somewhere. And so, like, it's not easy. I think every parent kicks themselves in the butt on stuff they did with their kids, and you're like, ah, but,
it is hard. Like parenting's a hard job, very worthy job. Now we have our first grandkid, and that's a blessing. Okay, like that is the reward for being a parent. You know what I'm saying? You get to be a grandparent.
yeah,
That's pretty good.
I've
Last
got five
question.
and more coming, so I'm with you.
Okay,
Yeah,
nice. Well, that is a true blessing, man. Like when you can play with them and send them home, woo, that's
yeah.
some good stuff. This is my last question, and as a business, I'm just curious. I know you bring outside people in, whether it's Ryan Hawk, his group, or whatever. Like what do you do? What's your thought behind bringing in people to teach you skills, things, leadership, or whatever that is?
Well, I mean, I think if you don't have outside perspective just in general, you get a friend of mine, he always talks about eating your own cooking. And you kind of start to believe you can believe your own lies in a way, like, oh, we're doing great, and having somebody outside that has a different vantage point, different life experiences, different perspective can really like shine light on, your blind spots.
Yeah,
And so there's part of that. That's part of the reason why. But also when you when you think about like the day-to-day of the business and the things that have to happen, you kind of get in this grind and it's easy to forget about leadership.
yeah,
But when someone's sole focus for you is to help with your leadership development, and not just mine personally, but like my team and
sure.
their teams and all that, when that's their job, one, they're going to do a better job of it because they're going to come more prepared. Two, it's kind of like your kids. They don't listen to you as well. They do. Like
No
you
doubt.
tell your daughter to do something and she's like, no. Your friend tells her and he's the smartest guy on the planet,
Yes, no doubt.
And so like there's some value in having a third party, not, our leadership team
I love it.
delivering that message all the time. But like with us and Ryan's team, like it's a group of coaches similar to you, who care a ton about leadership, who care a ton about developing people, creating opportunities to improve lives. And for whatever reason, I think I know the reasons, but like they um, interact well with our blue collar feel in our
Yeah,
company.
sure.
And so it just works really well for us,
Yeah,
and for us, I mean, we spend a lot of money on training, a lot of money on leadership development, but we just think it's so worth it for
yeah,
forget the financial side of it, which there is a financial side of improving there. But just like when you can see a difference when a wife comes to me at an event and says, I'm so glad that my husband went through this, whatever this is, the
right.
training.
Yep.
Here's how it's improved at home. Here's how he's interacting with my daughter better. Here's how, like, I mean, it can get emotional because you've
Yeah,
like not only have you uh changed them for your business, but they have changed for their personal life and the trajectory of their kids are changed because we poured into them. And so for us, it's, somewhat of a mission. Like it's a bit of a like, how many people can we help in my lifetime here at Kimbel?
I love it. It's fantastic. And I have found, even here that the best businesses, the best banks, the best they invest, like they just do. And I think some of it is exactly what you said, man. Having that third party, is a big deal, And then when you find somebody that's really good at influencing and changing behavior for the better, like it's priceless, no matter what you pay. It's
Yep.
worth it because you're going to get the feedback like that from a spouse, from a kid or somebody like that. What's on your horizon? Like what's your dream? What's your vision? What's 5, 10, 15 years down the road? What do you see yourself doing?
I love our team here at Kimbel. I tell people all the time we've got the best team, and I don't say that like, you know, just to blow smoke. Like I would put our team. We live in Walmart world. You're close enough. I mean, we have
No
some
doubt.
top executive Walmart. We have top executive Tyson. I would put my team against any of them any day, and be pretty sure that we would win.
Yeah.
We have an unbelievable team here. And so I want to just keep serving them and helping them to help others create opportunities to improve lives. I'm at a point in my life like the money doesn't matter anymore.
Sure.
And so I get up every day. I think I said this on the podcast. I get up every day to help my team create opportunities to improve lives.
I love it.
And I'll tell a quick story about what that looks like. So we have a wellness division department. Sherry heads that up as well. But um, not we had an individual who had um, for years, pretty much his whole life from high school on, had an addiction to alcohol. He recently beat it like 6 months ago. Sherry was going to talk to a group of individuals at a spot at a shop, and she brought this individual that had beat the alcohol, and she's like, "Hey, come with me. Let's talk about your journey." He's like, "In, do it." So they go, they talk about this, and at the end, somebody else in the organization raises her hand, goes over and talks to me like, "I need help. I'm struggling. I can't." And
Mm.
been 3 weeks, that 4 weeks now, and that guy's still off the bottle.
Wow.
That juices me up. Like
Yeah.
that is a guy that his life can be changed forever,
Yeah.
and his family can be changed forever. And so that's cool. And if someday he accepts Christ through this, even better. But I did my part. I
Yeah.
helped helped on the ladder. So
Yeah.
that's what.
That's why we do what we do, and that's absolutely awesome. That story's great, and there's a lot of things going on in your business and around you that probably never even make it back to you. The
Yep.
ripples of what y'all do, a lot of times don't make it back, but I am sure that it is a lot of good. I didn't say this earlier, but I told you I went to a private Christian school, and I did, and it was Harding University in Searcy, Arkansas.
Okay. Yeah.
So I had a lot of dudes that graduated with a 4-year degree that went to work at Walmart,
Yep.
because or that was big, in that area.
Yep. For
And
sure.
a very good program as well, for sure.
Yep.
Well, man, I really appreciate it, Rob. You've been fantastic. I appreciate you coming on here more than you know. I'm super grateful, for you taking the time and making the time. It's been a true pleasure.
Yeah. Been same here. It was fun, and we just started a market in Springfield, so I may be up there and see you sometime. So be
Please
good to
do.
catch
If you're
up.
ever in this area, man, please call me. Let's get together. We'll come out and let you watch a football practice or something and let you
Okay.
chat with our team. I would love to meet you and continue this, man. I think it's fantastic. I think what you do is fantastic. I don't think it's common. I think you're uncommon, but I think that's why, your business has done what it's done. You know what I'm saying? So I'm honored to you have made the time to do this today. So I'm super thankful.
Thankful you too. I appreciate it.
Yes,
Keep
sir.
doing what you do.
Yes, sir. I appreciate all of you that listen. Until next time, adios, amigos.